hands down the worst weather conditions I've ever hunted in my life.
These are the most memorable hunts from the Where to Hunt podcast.
Because I have a lot of memorable hunts, if you will, and I'll give one 2008. This was in Illinois in December, public land, right after their gun season ended. And in 2007, I'd killed a pretty nice buck down there, and this was at Starved Rock State Park. And I was watching the weather forecast, and I see there was a snow coming through there. And I called the park ranger the next day after it was supposedly went through, and I asked him, did you guys get that snow? And he said, yeah, we got 8 inches of fresh snow. So I went down there, and it was cold. I was down there with a friend of mine, and I prepped the same exact tree that I had hunted the year before and shot that buck in 2007. And it was a big oak tree next to a locust tree that was dropping those big beans. And the first evening hunt, it was 7 degrees, 35-mile-an-hour stiff winds, and it was snowing. It was basically a blizzard. And I'm sitting in this tree. I had on 2 Rivers West ambush jackets because they had membranes in them, so they blocked the wind. I had on 5 adhesive grabber body warmers. And I kept my nose, I was in my saddle, and I kept my nose against the tree to block the wind. I spun around so I was on the downwind side of the wind from the tree. And at one point, I'm like, why in the hell am I even sitting here? Because there is no way a deer is going to move in these weather conditions. And about a half hour before dark, obviously I hadn't seen a thing. I heard something below me, and I turned my head, and there was 3 bucks walking by the base of my tree. They were not going to that locust tree. They were walking from the timber into this really tall weed field, which was I was on the edge of this tall weed field. And it was a spike, a 4, and a 6-point. I mean, it was a 2, 4, and a 6, which is pretty rare. And I was like, wow, I was going to leave and go back to the motel because nothing was going to move, and now I just saw 3 bucks half hour before dark. So I said, okay, I'm just going to sit here and wait it out. And just before dark, I looked to the left, and here's some deer, some does coming down the edge of this weed field towards this locust tree. And behind them was this big buck. And they came in and started eating locust beans, and that big 12-pointer came into 17 yards. Long story short, 17 yards, I shot him, and he ran 80 yards, and I watched him fall down. And it was a 160-inch typical 12-point, and that was a very memorable hunt because of the it was hands down the worst weather conditions I've ever hunted in my life.
These are the most memorable hunts from the Where to Hunt podcast.